Welcome. Welcome to week 2 of Mpai 600 here in the Applied Intelligence program at Georgetown University School of Continuing Studies. So we're getting rolling with the course. I think we've solved any week 1 hiccups and issues going forward, and I know we have people registering late and coming in and dropping out. So I think we've solidified those issues going far. I'll just say that you've done your discussion sections for week 1. And you've done your current events, or if not, soon you will have them done. And I'll give you detailed feedback this Monday and Tuesday so you know whether you hit the mark or what you need to improve on for future discussion posts and current events. And as I mentioned in the intro of this course, the discussion sections and current events are I expect you to write well, and I expect you to have looked at current events, but really, I let you freelance a little bit, give a little bit of your opinion, coordinate those types of, or be a little bit more free willing. I will not on the papers. I'll be a little bit more strict on the grading as far as when the papers come in. So just keep that in mind going forward. So announcements. Keep up the effort. I think everyone did pretty well on the discussion boards, and I'll be reading your current events soon, but it's the first class, and for most of you, it's the first class in the program, or maybe first time back in school. So the effort is high at first, and everyone's enthused, and then it wanes as the semester goes on. Please don't let that happen to you. The semester will get harder. The readings will get harder. There'll be more papers to write. You'll have your other classes if you're taking 2 at one time. So be cognizant of it. Just please keep up the effort. And then the one thing, I'll mention this individually with you, but I'm looking for kind of the specificity in writing, whether it's on the discussion sections or in the papers. And what I mean by that is we have the UBL capture. Please discuss specifically human instances that identify the human incident and show how it contributed to the successful capture of bin Laden. SIGINT, same thing. OSINT, some of you mentioned that as well. Don't give me a mealy mouth, the ints contribute well to each other and they show that we need to work all together so we can achieve an objective. I don't want that type of writing. I want specific, as granular as you can get. When we talk about the case studies in future weeks, I want you to identify specific parts of the case study and show how that issue that you discuss contributed to cascading failures down the line. I don't want mealy mouth, we need to work together, or we need to show our work, or what have you. I want specificity in your writing. So current events, just like you guys are doing current events for weekly, I will share some of my current events and what I see that's applicable to this class that goes on in the world. So potential Iran conflict. I don't know how many people actually work this issue, but if you've been following the news, there's been just a spike in rhetoric and troop movements for potential showdown with Iran. This is supposedly based on intelligence, on some sort of threat reporting, but if you follow the news, one political side reads the threat intelligence one way, and one political side reads the threat intelligence the other way. I don't know if there's a solution to this problem. We'll talk about politicization in a future course, but it would be, I don't want to say a shame, it would be a tragedy if we went to war based on intelligence that was faulty, if we repeated the Iraq WMD scenario. And I'll just, that's all I'll say about that, but there's one more issue to bring up regarding the actual conflict. If you are going to war, or you are potentially considering military action, you have to decide what the objective is. I'm not sure exactly what the objective, if we do have a military conflict with Iran, what we're trying to do. Are we trying to bomb their missile silos? Are we trying to change the regime? Are we trying to prevent them from operating throughout the Middle East. If anyone has any ideas on that, please let me know. But based on what I've seen in the news, I'm not even sure what our objectives are for any conflict in Iran. So that's what I kind of see, big current events issue that it definitely is applicable to this class. So review of last week, the UBL capture, I think, again, the discussion points were pretty good for the most part. But again, you saw the cross-queuing. Well, one, let me back up. You hopefully learned, if you had never heard of these terms, signals intelligence, human intelligence, you hopefully learned what they were in this first week. And then you learned how they were applied, cross-queued to achieve a very important objective. And again, all three ints were fused together. The signals intelligence, especially with the courier, and how it traced to bin Laden. That was the key signals intelligence brought up. The human intelligence, the original interrogations, whether we're going to talk about enhanced interrogations in future lectures, but whether you think it was enhanced interrogation or it was just normal interrogation that would have brought information on the courier to light, I'll let you decide. But obviously, that is a human intelligence portion, and human gets a lot of glory and gets a lot of movies. But really, human intelligence is these mundane interrogations, mundane talking to people that to get insider information. And then the GeoInt, again, you saw the how they identified the families, that there was 3 families, how they identified the pacer walking back and forth using overhead imagery. They knew bin Laden had 3 families. They could identify 3 families in the house, and that was a key tipper to say that this is actually bin Laden in Abbottabad. So again, you see all 3 fusions working together. The problem that you might have is if you over-rely on one of these intelligence sources because it's your background or because you thought intelligence, this was the best way intelligence was crafted. That leads to intelligence failure. An example, the Korean War, the invasion of China into North Korea 60 or 70 years ago now. Officers at the time had relied almost completely on overhead imagery from aircraft in the 1950s. The Chinese infiltrated into North Korea through mountains and not through roads and through areas that you couldn't image using light infantry. So the over-reliance on imagery intelligence led to the intelligence failure, not detecting whether the Chinese were coming in to North Korea and essentially decimating American forces during the early parts of the Korean War. So that's the problem when you rely on one intelligence discipline. Hopefully from this lesson you take is you have to rely on all disciplines, you have to cross-cue disciplines off of each other to achieve an effect. And then the last thing I would say is, this is the second semester it's happened straight. OSINT, a couple of you talked about that in your discussion sections. I guess you can say, maybe I'll bring that up when I update this course, but yeah, OSINT did play a factor on this Osama bin Laden capture. It did lead people astray, as you saw in the documentary, where people were looking at bushes behind pictures of Osama bin Laden that he got released and saying that this bush was indigenous to this part of of Pakistan, and that was horse pucky at the time. But his open source intelligence, his statements, his desire to be on various networks did lead to contributed to his capture. So I'll give you that on the discussion boards. And then the intelligence cycle, you saw that again in the Lowenthal, and I talked about my points of the intelligence cycle. And again, the one thing I think the classic intelligence cycle doesn't focus on is that interface. They call it dissemination, but that interface between policymaker and intelligence analyst. You saw it in the Osama bin Laden video where the intelligence analyst was briefing, Obama at the time and the senior leaders to make a decision. But you could also see a different decision being made from a different senior leader. So how the intelligence is presented to senior leaders and how they can make decisions is a key point of the intelligence cycle, and that's why I say amended there. So week 2 coming up, the collection strategy. So everyone will be doing a collection strategy. Go ahead and pause me and look at the example that I sent. Okay, so welcome back. Again, very simple for the collection strategy. Develop requirements, narrow, focused requirements. Apply the intelligence disciplines, as you saw in the Bin Laden case. And then analyze pitfalls in the collection cycle. That's what I'm looking for the collection strategy. Choose something that's relevant to you. You can choose a UBL case study if you want, but I will give you the option as well to choose something that's relevant to whatever field that you're pursuing. And again, I just want you to be creative here. This is a time where you can put pen to paper, develop requirements, and then practice what you just learned in a scenario of your choosing. So I'll be open to questions this whole week if there are issues. I can also open a Zoom session if there's a lot of questions and the questions get repeated. If you're interested in that, please let me know. But again, I want you to write well. I want you to focus your requirements. I want you to evaluate how those requirements can actually play out in your scenario. But again, I also want you to be creative and think through this holistically. And then the readings this week. So again, your collection strategy is part of this week, and the second week is the discussion section. Lowenthal Chapter 6, the Intelligence Tradecraft Primer. Again, I'm looking for those analytical pitfalls going forward. That if you took the psychology class, you'll be familiar with. If you're not, this will be a good introduction of our own biases, our own cognitive shortcuts that we take that eventually causes us to have a lot of wrong answers. And this is applicable whether you're in intelligence, this is applicable for business leaders, this is applicable for law enforcement. A lot of industries suffer from these biases that result in some bad decision making. And then the documentary, so the PBS Frontline, The Confessions. What you'll see is a gross injustice because certain people suffer from these biases. And this is a conviction. These 4 people were convicted of a crime that was very obvious they didn't commit. But the prosecution and the detectives played upon the biases of the juries and the appellate judges, and it led to a travesty of justice. So I want you to do in the discussion section is take those analytical biases that are highlighted in the Intelligence Tradecraft Primer in Lowenthal Chapter 6 and apply them to the case study, the confessions, for the discussion section. So please do that and you'll be fine. So if there's questions or issues, please let me know, and I look forward to your discussions.